Do you think tests are fair?
We only have tests on Fridays.
A lot of tests,
Depends. On some classes we take them every week, some classes every 4 days, and some classes every 15 days.
So in 1965, there was an act called the Elementary and Secondary School Act, which was then updated in 2002, and something we know as No Child Left Behind. And these laws they were implemented to measure students' progress in elementary and secondary school. And so that standardized testing became more implemented regularly because of those acts. Some of the controversy with standardized testing is some people say that there's such a wide range of how children learn that it's kind of putting students in a box, so to speak, that you're only testing certain things, and some students that learn in different ways aren't represented as equally by the tests.
A major critique of the standardized testing industry is just that it's an industry. These standardized tests are written and then graded by companies across the United States. These tests that are created by companies fall extremely short of what should be expected on a standardized test. In New York, there were reports of third grade language arts tests that had a reading level of 5th grade. There were 8th grade language arts tests that included vocabulary way beyond the student's ability. Particularly, there was one article about playground safety that the students had to read, which included this quote, "Paradoxically, we posit that our fear of children being harmed by mostly harmless injuries may result in more fearful children and increased levels of psychopathology." However, these tests are poorly graded as well. Pearson, one of the largest testing companies, has put out ads on Craigslist looking for test graders. While Pearson's official job listing says that a bachelor's degree is required, during an audit of their company, Pearson was unable to prove that their employees had attained a degree. Several of these testing companies have an entrance exam that must be passed in order to be hired as a grader. However, there have been numerous reports of those who have failed their tests still being hired. Sometimes those people had failed up to 3 times as well. These tests are often graded on a rubric, and former test scores report that this rubric failed to take into account students' creativity or individuality. Furthermore, that the rubric itself was vague and confusing, and when they asked for clarification, they didn't receive any. Often these tests seem to be graded on quota rather than merit. Dan DiMaggio, a former test scorer, reports that when he was beginning a project, he was told that last year there were a certain amount of 2s, a certain amount of 3s, and a certain amount of 4s, and it's expected for that to be the same this year. If it's not similar, he was told that he was scoring too many 3s and too many 4s, and that he had to learn to see more papers as a 3, learn to see more papers as a 4. Often these scores are not given adequate time to properly grade these tests. Short answers were often graded in 30 seconds or less, while essays had to be graded in under a minute. Todd Farley, a 15-year veteran of the testing industry, had this to say, quote, "We don't understand your kids. We don't understand anyone's kids. And that's an unacceptable answer to have from someone who could be in charge of determining a child's future."
They make me nervous, actually. Nervous.
I'm good at whatever I'm taking the test at, and then when I'm taking the test, I'm scared I'm gonna fail, and then I do fail or I don't.
I was sometimes I get stuck on things, and I can't tell the teacher. She'll tell me, "Hey, this is a test. I can't tell you," and I get stressed and frustrated and nervous.
Student anxiety is something that's very common when it comes to testing. I know I've experienced it, and I know a lot of people who have experienced it as well. When I think about younger kids, they're in the 3rd grade and they're taking these standardized tests, I just cannot even imagine how stressful that is for them. They shouldn't have to worry about something like that being so young. The time could be spent doing things that are more productive. Standardized testing is taking the fun out of education, and instead of making students excited to learn, they're worrying about if they're good enough. You could imagine the effects that this has on teachers who are receiving back grades that are lower than expected, right? So the teachers who are going through this are being reprimanded, and it's actually kind of an embarrassing situation. Now, I don't know if this happens in every school, but there will be staff meetings, and the student test scores with each teacher will be discussed openly, and depending on what the results are, they will either be praised or reprimanded. And if they're reprimanded, they will have to completely switch around the way that they are teaching so they can make their students' test scores raise.
While standardized tests are cost-effective for the schools and the school districts, they are not the best indicators of a student's progress. There are other alternate options that are available, but due to time and money are often not. So what are these other options? Well, one is multimedia. Students utilize technology for everyday tasks, so why not use technology in order to administer a test? Another is performance exams. A student can write an essay or do an oral presentation, or even conduct a scientific experiment. Another option is the traditional option of a parent-teacher conference. Teachers are the best indicators of a student's progress, but due to time constraints, this option is rarely used anymore. But standardized tests is not required, it's an option. Parents can opt their students out of testing.
Hi, my name is Lee Layton.
My name is Alana, and
My name is Tanya Davis.
And I'm Alex Boyd, and we're bubbled in.